Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I hope you're all doing well. So today I thought it has been a long time since I did my last Narnian breakdown. So I did The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. So today I will be doing Prince Caspian and I will be breaking down the film for you guys. As originally these books that C.S. Lewis has written was based on his Christian beliefs. So I thought I would break down the film to you guys, but in a way that a Christian may see it, if that makes any sense. So I'll just be picking out some scenes from the film and talking about them from there. So, on that note, let's start with this scene. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. So, in this particular scene, you have Peter, who is trying to find the right path in the maze of rocks that there are. But since he hasn't been to Narnia in quite a while, there's a lot of things that have changed, including where certain locations are. And at the moment, the path isn't very clear to him, as he just found out that Aslan hasn't been around for a while, so he doesn't see any need to acknowledge Aslan, who represents God, because since he hasn't been seen in a while by pretty much anyone, then he feels as though Aslan isn't really there when he is, just not physically. And so he's kind of a bit lost, especially as he hasn't been to Narnia in a while as well. And in some ways he's still getting used to Narnia, because it's been so long that he's kind of forgotten the ways of it, if that makes any sense. So we take that and we put it into a Christian perspective, and we know that in order to make our path clear to us, we have to acknowledge God, because only he knows where he wants us to go. He's the one that guides us, and there are points where we will take the wrong turn, but that's when we need to acknowledge God, who will guide us back onto the right path. And throughout this film, that's kind of what Peter does, along with Edmund and Susan, as we'll see later that Lucy is the only one that believes. So throughout the film, we will see how those three will learn to acknowledge Aslan again. And for us, we need to learn to acknowledge God in a time of need when we take the wrong turn. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that men are without excuse. So when we look at this scene, this is when Peter, Susan, Edmund and Lucy and the rest have come to a cliff, and you have Peter, Susan and Edmund that looks out onto the cliff, and they see that there is no way, there's no path set out for them, and so they turn back and keep going. But Lucy, on the other hand, she sees Aslan on the other side of the cliff, and she tells them, but they don't listen to her, because they haven't acknowledged that Aslan is there, even if he's not physically there. But Lucy just senses his presence within Narnia. And this is what this verse is kind of saying, that even though God is invisible, he can still be shown through other things such as nature, people. And if you think about it, in the first film, Narnia was covered in ice and snow, But as soon as Aslan returned, all of that was gone and it was summer. It was no longer winter. So that symbolizes Aslan, that symbolizes God bringing hope back. And in this scene, Narnia is no longer covered in ice and snow because they defeated the witch. But even if Aslan hasn't been seen for a while, he can still be seen through his creation, through the world around him, which is Narnia, and Lucy sees that. Especially when she had that dream of the trees moving and dancing in the wind. And that was seen as a sign that Aslan is still here, because even nature rejoices God just as we do. And so Lucy, in a way, feels Aslan's presence through the nature around her, through his creation, just as we should, whether that's through the world around us or people, because God created people as well. And so we have no excuse, because there is so much around us that can lead us to God, but it's whether we choose to accept it or not. And that's where free will comes in. And without faith, it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists, and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him. So in this film, Lucy is the one that is known to have the most faith in Aslan, because she never stops looking for him, she never stops seeking him. And this is what this verse is basically saying, that as Christians, we need to have faith in God and we need to seek him in order for him to reward us. And since Lucy is willing to seek and have faith in Aslan, she then gets rewarded by getting advice from him and actually physically seeing him, compared to her siblings who just focused on other things and not on Aslan, not on the one who can actually help them win the battle that they are currently facing. And sometimes, whenever we're in our own battle in our life, whether that's with mental health or anything like that, where we need a helping hand, we need to realize that sometimes we just need to step back and let God take over, because he is there to help. No matter what, no matter who you are, he is there to support you, because that's what he does, that's his job. But we just have to accept it, because if we don't accept it, then we're not going to get as much help as we need. A patient man has great understanding, but a quick-tempered man displays folly. I don't know if I said that right. But when we look at this scene of everyone discussing what they're going to do next, you have Lucy on the stone table from the first film, who tries to get her voice heard, who has a completely different perspective, but what she says is true. In some ways, it outweighs what everyone else says, as she is the patient man in relation to this Bible verse, as she has great understanding of Narnia and of Aslan, as she is the only one that has actually seen him. And then you have Peter and all the others making the decisions, having the final say, but they are so quick to make those decisions that they don't really think them through, and that's when things can go a bit sideways. Which is why sometimes when we make decisions, we need to kind of step back, because if we just rush and make a decision, then you don't see the full picture. So in some sense, Lucy is taking that step back. she's being patient. She's just looking at the whole picture, the whole story that is set out before her. And she's really thought it through, which takes time to do. Whereas everyone else, they're just looking at different parts of it, not of it as a full picture. So then they're just taking what they can rather than being willing to just take that time out where they can reflect on their decisions being made to see whether they are actually the right ones or not. But when he asks, he must believe and not doubt, because he who doubts is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. So in this scene especially, this links very well, as you have Aslan, as soon as he roars, the river obeys his command and starts making big waves, tossing the enemy back and forth because they doubt in what the Narnians believe, they doubt in Aslan. And although in this verse this is seen more as a metaphor, it's reflected into more of a physical world within this film, but they both have the same meaning. And in some ways, this means that those who believe are seen to be stable with their faith, stable with what they believe, whereas those that doubt, they are very unsure. So they're a bit kind of in the middle, as one minute they go to one side and then the next they go to another side, so they're being tossed between the two sides because of that doubt. And this is what this verse, this is what this scene is reflecting in some ways. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old has gone, the new has come. So in this scene, Aslan accepts Caspian into Narnia, as before Caspian was born into the world of men, full of greed and pride, and so he was brought up there and he got used to their ways. And so that was the old part of him. And ever since he joined the Narnians, he has become a completely new person. He has become a new man. A new person has been made just by learning from his mistakes and learning that what he has been brought up with is actually wrong and this way is actually right. And that can link to us Christians. We can sometimes think that one way is right and one way is wrong when actually it's the other way around. But it just depends on how we've been brought up. And then later on in life, we get more of our own ideas, our own thoughts, and that's when our perspective can change, just as Caspians did with the Narnians. But I will restore you to health and heal your wounds, declares the Lord. So in this scene, I love this scene so much because one of my favourite characters is in it, and also the meaning behind it as well. And so you have Reepicheep, who is the mouse, and Aslan, and Reepicheep has been wounded in the battle. He lost a tail, and his fellow mouse friends are carrying him, and that just reminds me of the story in the Bible of the paralyzed man and his friends carrying him down to Jesus so that Jesus can heal him. I should have picked a verse from that, but the main thing that I got from this is that just as God has healed people in the Bible through Jesus, Aslan healed Reepicheep by restoring his tail, and that is a perfect representation, as Jesus was a healer. He healed many people, and this is what this scene is reflecting, that Jesus is willing to heal you, to give you strength, whether that's physically or mentally. And so, in some ways, we need to rely on God to be there for us, to support us, to heal us whenever we feel vulnerable. Live in harmony with one another. Do not be proud, but be willing to associate with people of low position. So, in this scene, we have Aslan, who comes face to face for the first time with the dwarf that has been helping Lucy, Edmund, Susan, and Peter in the battle. Although in the first film, the dwarves were seen as the bad guys, as they were part of the witches' army. In this film, however, we have this one dwarf whose perspectives have completely changed, as he's now fighting for Aslan, not fighting for the witch. As, if I remember correctly, at some point in the film, he was judged for being a dwarf, for going against Aslan, because dwarves are known to be on the darker side, which was the witch's side. And yet, when we link this to this verse, it says about living in harmony with one another. And then there's a bit that says, do not be proud. So in this case, do not be proud of ignoring people because they don't fit your standards of a friend. That also links back to the dwarf of being judged, like I said before. And this is when we need to be willing to associate with people, no matter who they are or who they're friends with. As we are all the same, we're all human. We need to give each other the respect that we want and that we need. So when it says about associating with people of low position, this refers back to this film of when you have the dwarf, and in some sense he is of low status because he is seen as a previous enemy, not as someone that is helping the good side. And here you see Aslan giving the dwarf a second chance, accepting him onto his side. And we can relate this to Christianity as God forgives everyone, no matter who they are, no matter what they've done, as long as they change their ways, which the dwarf has done, then they will be forgiven by God. They will be accepted by God, just as the dwarf was accepted by Aslan. So that is all that I have for you guys today. I hope you have enjoyed this video. I hope that you have learned something from it. And if you guys have any other comparisons of the film and verses within the Bible, then feel free to let me know of them, because I'm sure I've probably missed some. And so I would love to hear your thoughts as well on this video, whether you want to expand on something that I have said already. And on that note, I will see you guys on my next video.